You are listening to Lighthearted, the official podcast of the United States Lighthouse Society. My name is Jeremy D'Entremont. Welcome. Today is July 13th, 2025, and this is episode 321 of Lighthearted. Today we're going to listen to a conversation about one of the most historic and publicly accessible lighthouses in New England, Beavertail Light in Rhode Island. My co-host today is my go-to person for all things Southern New England, Judy Ann Point. Hi, Judy Ann.
Hi, Jeremy.
Good to have you back. As our listeners might know, you're a very active volunteer for Friends of Palm Rocks Lighthouse in East Providence, Rhode Island. You're also the first vice president of the American Lighthouse Foundation. So I don't need to tell you, it's a very busy time of year. How's the summer going so far for you?
Busy.
Yeah.
It's going great. On a personal level, I've got lots of gardening that I'm doing early morning because right now it's like a steam bath out there.
Yep.
Spending time with family and of course with lighthouses. Our tour season's going really well right now at Palm Rocks, and yeah, it's a busy season, but I love it.
Yeah, good. I kind of miss the busy local season with Portsmouth Harbor Light. We'd be running tours normally, but we're still looking to rebuild our walkway and do other repairs from various storms in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So we're still hoping for next year, maybe.
All in good time.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll get to Beavertail Light in a minute, our main interview for today. But first, I want to mention that I got back recently, just about a week ago, from spending most of the month of June in France. For most of that time, I was with the U.S. Lighthouse Society group tour. So, Judy Ann, I believe you actually have some personal experience with France. Is that right?
Yes, but first let me say welcome back home, Jeremy.
Thank you.
I spent a semester in Normandy. It was back a couple of years ago when I was in college.
Yeah.
And I've been back there a couple of times since, but this was all before my fascination with lighthouses. So I cannot say that I've had any experience with lighthouses in France other than what I've seen in pictures.
Yeah. I did not get to Normandy. I did get to Brittany. The
Nice.
tour, the USLHS tour did not go to Brittany. There have been a couple of tours in the past to Brittany, USLHS tours. But at the close of the group tour, I took a train from Paris to Brest in Brittany, rented a car for a couple of days, stayed at Point Saint Mathieu. Mathieu, yeah. Your French pronunciation, I'm sure, is better than mine. But amazing place. I really enjoyed Brittany. It's so beautiful. Yeah. So, and then Paris, I was in Paris for a couple of days by myself at the end and went to the Louvre and Eiffel Tower and Notre Dame, the things you're like required to do when you're in Paris.
Of course.
And they were fantastic, but it was so hot and crowded. These attractions tend to be a bit overcrowded these days, but still it was quite an experience. But I especially loved Brittany.
Yep.
Also, in the middle of the tour, about half our tour group, we had an off day in Biarritz, which is kind of a beach resort kind of city. Yep. And a bunch of us did a side trip. We actually shared a taxi ride across the border into Spain to San Sebastian in Spain, which was really nice. I really enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, I've been in the Pyrenees area, and France is a beautiful country. There's no getting around it.
Yeah, and from what I can say I've been in Spain too, although just a little bit of it. But San Sebastian's a beautiful city, and we took a boat ride out to a lighthouse there with an interesting art exhibit inside the lighthouse and a sculpture installation. They gutted the lighthouse, and it's all this installation. It's kind of hard to explain.
Yeah,
but maybe I'll talk about it more on the podcast coming up. I'd actually love to feature it because it was pretty amazing. But anyway, so we got to go to Cordovan Lighthouse during the tour, which is one of the oldest and most famous lighthouses in the world.
My dream lighthouse.
Yeah, it was right near the top of my bucket list. A couple of years ago, I got to go on the Ireland tour and got to see Fastnet Light, which was also at the top of that list. But Cordovan, Fastnet, we got close to, but didn't go into. Cordovan, we got into, and it's amazing. I mean, it's basically a palace in a lighthouse with a chapel with beautiful stained glass. And
wow. Was that the first place that they had a Fresnel lens installed?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah, in 1823. Yeah, where Fresnel installed his first lens. And that very first lens still exists
Wow.
at a museum of lighthouses that's in Brittany, but that unfortunately that museum is closed until next year, so I was not able to see that.
You have to go back.
Well, we'll see. But while I was in Paris, I did go to the Marine Museum, which was really good, and they have some panels from early experimental panels predating that first Cordovan lens, created by Fresnel. These panels with very irregular prisms and stuff. I had no idea those were going to be there, and boy, was that interesting to see. Uh,
Nice.
yeah, yeah, and I met up with my old friend Jean Guichard, the famous French photographer, largely of lighthouses. You may know, took probably
Hmm.
the most famous lighthouse picture ever taken, the wave wrapping around
Oh, yes.
La
Now, was
Jamont
that off the
Lighthouse.
coast of Brittany or
It
Normandy?
was, yeah,
It was
Brittany,
Brittany.
yeah,
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 yeah.
La Jamont, yeah, and
Yes,
so
yes.
I spent a few days with Jean more than 20 years ago, and so we got reunited. That was great to see him.
Oh, that's great.
So that was one of the highlights of the tour as well. So I could go on, and I think there will be episodes of the podcast with people I made contact with while I was over there. There will also be, I think, at least a couple of live Zoom events that relate to France coming up. I made a lot of great contacts over there. So whether listeners like it or not, they will be hearing more about about my France trip in upcoming weeks.
Well, I'll be listening anyway.
Good. I'm glad somebody will be. So
You'll be fine.
to shift gears a little bit, the U.S. Lighthouse Society also has a tour coming up on Cape Cod in September. I'll be kind of co-leading that with
Hmm.
Tina Hans, who's my niece, and it's sold out. So I don't want to encourage people to try to sign up because it is sold out. But there will be more tours on Cape Cod certainly in the future. And speaking of Cape Cod, I understand you may have some things to report on. Is that right?
Uh, actually, yes, I do. While you were tooling around France, I was in Cape Cod, so there.
Mm,
Yeah, we traveled. Usually, I don't travel to the Cape during the tourist season, but I only live an hour away, so it's pretty easy. But if you're going to go see lighthouses, why not? I'll go any time of the year. We got to 4 different lighthouses this summer, and because I'm part of the American Lighthouse Foundation, I'm trying to see as many of the chapters of the ALF that I can.
yep.
So we visited Race Point, and of course, Gary Childs is the president of the Cape Cod chapter. If you want to know anything about the Cape or anything about its lighthouses, Gary Childs is the go-to person
Yeah.
because he is amazing. He's a wealth of information. He drove Gary, my husband Gary, and myself and a couple of friends of ours, Nancy and Alan, out through the dunes to get to Race Point. And
Hmm.
that was an experience in itself. I really,
Yeah.
really loved it.
Yep.
Um, then the next day, the four of us we took shuttle to Long Point, and then we walked a mile and a half in soft sand to see Wood End. Now,
Yep.
those two, of course, they need some work. I didn't realize just how remote they were until
Yes.
we actually went out there. And there's a lot of future preservation, hopefully, that can take place there, but they are so difficult to get to.
Yes.
And one of the main reasons that we went to the Cape, along with those visits, I interviewed Greg Stone, who is the proprietor of the Lighthouse Inn in West Dennis.
Yes.
And I know you had interviewed him back, I think it was in episode 133.
Hmm.
And when I reached out to the different people of the Southern New England lighthouses, I asked, "Do you have any updates, any news you'd like me to share?" And Greg got right back to me. So he wanted to discuss the T groin project. Now,
Hmm.
before your episode, I didn't know what a T groin was, but I went there and I saw it in person. We actually sat out on the deck and we're out looking at these T groins. Now, just to explain what a T groin is, well, a groin is kind of like a jetty, made of these great big stones. And Greg taught me the difference between a groin and a jetty. He said his son taught him this. A jetty is along a river, and a groin is just running perpendicular from the beach.
Hmm.
So when you look out from the deck of the Lighthouse Inn, and you look out on the beach, they have a couple of what they call embayments, which is like a half moon shaped beach. The T groins are there to stabilize the property and prevent erosion. And that's exactly what is happening there.
Yeah.
And another thing of interest that Greg told me, I never knew this, he explained, because he's an avid fisherman and boater, he said waves come in sets of seven. After they come in, the water comes in sets of seven, then there's a lull. And when
Yeah.
the lull occurs, that's when the ocean rushes back out and takes the sand with it. So those T's that are running parallel to the shore at the end of the groin, they are there to hold in the sand. So I thought
Hmm.
that was pretty cool. And it actually does work. He mentioned too that I asked him about, like, just it must be phenomenal, the cost of this. And he said actually the cost of getting the permits was more expensive than the project itself.
Huh.
He had to get 13 different
Oh, wow.
agencies, local, regional, two or three at the state level, federal. He had to get permits from all of them. He
Yeah.
said that was more timely and costly than actually doing the project itself.
Yeah.
But Jeremy, I loved going there. We did get to spend the night. We had spent a night there a couple of years ago, but coming back now, talking to Greg, I have to say that this place is unbelievable. Greg is a great guy. And I remember him saying that when he was 7, he told his parents, who were the owners, that he wanted to run the Lighthouse Inn. Well, it's still going strong. His
Yes.
family's still involved. And every person you talk to that works there, and I have to give a shout out to Daniel, our waiter, every person you talk to there absolutely loves their job. And that success starts from the top and trickles down.
Yeah.
Even the guests that I talked to, everybody there is happy. Greg Stone runs an incredible business.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. And yeah, I've stayed there a couple of times. And first time I visited there, I believe was 2001. And I met Greg's mother, Mary, at that time,
Yes.
and got nice pictures of her. And it was such a nice visit. You feel like you're the guest of a family there, which you are. It's very, very
Exactly.
cozy. Yeah.
That's the feeling I had.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So our tour group in September, USLHS tour group, is going to the Lighthouse Inn. We're not staying there, but we're having breakfast there. We're going to have a breakfast buffet there. And
Oh,
while
the
people are eating
food.
yeah,
The food is wonderful. I just
yeah,
want to tell you that.
yeah. Oh, I know from experience. Yeah. And as people eat breakfast, they'll take turns in small groups going up to, tour the lighthouse part of the building. For
Mhm.
listeners who don't know, the central part of the Lighthouse Inn on Cape Cod was in 1855, I think, if I'm remembering
I believe,
correctly.
yes, yes, I believe you
Lighthouse
are
called
correct.
Bass River Light originally. And Greg actually had it relit as an aid to navigation. Officially on charts now, it's the West Dennis Light, I believe. So
Yes,
it's
yes,
had,
Coast Guard calls it the West Dennis Light. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's had a few names in its history, but it's a wonderful place. And this is not a paid commercial from either of us, but both of us.
No, but
Yeah,
the place is just so wonderful. You want people to know about it.
yeah.
It really, really is, and it's well worth the stay, I have
I
to say.
completely agree. And also, would be going on the tour in September. We're going to Race Point. We're getting transportation and several four-wheel drive vehicles with Arts Dune tours out of Providence. I almost said Provincetown. People do that all the time. They mix up Provincetown and
I
Providence.
know.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
but yes,
yeah,
yes. I'm just looking back at my notes. They had a fifth order fixed white lens in 1855. So, Jeremy, you do know what you're talking about
okay.
at West Ennis Light, or
What's
the
now the
Lighthouse Inn.
Lighthouse Inn.
We
Yeah,
stayed in that section underneath the light both times we were there, and to walk out on the balcony and just look up at the light
yeah,
flashing, I loved it.
yeah. Oh, that's always special. Being in a lighthouse at night is always special.
Hmm.
So there's a lot we could talk about, and we have been talking for a while here, but we probably should get to our interview. I mean, it's great talking with you, Judy Ann. And again, we could talk about France and/or Cape Cod for
Oh,
hours
definitely.
probably. But let's move on to Beavertail and our guest for today. So please help me out with that, Judy Ann.
Of course, Jeremy. The town of Jamestown, Rhode Island, is on Conanicut Island, which is connected by bridges to North Kingstown and Newport. With foreign trade blossoming from Newport, local merchants petitioned for a lighthouse at Beavertail Point at the island's southern tip, and a 69-foot tall wooden tower was first lighted in 1749. It was the third light station in the American colonies.
The first lighthouse tower was destroyed by fire in July 1753, but it was soon rebuilt. About a century later, a report called Beavertail the, quote, worst built tower yet seen, unquote. A new tower was built in 1856, and the 45-foot square granite lighthouse built at that time still stands.
The lighthouse is now located within Beavertail State Park. The Beavertail Lighthouse Museum Association preserves and manages the light station. The museum occupies 2 former keepers' houses and 2 other buildings.
We have 3 guests today. Nancy Beye is the president of the Beavertail Lighthouse Museum Association. She's also a councilwoman on the Jamestown Town Council, a little bit of a tongue twister, and owner of the Jamestown Early Learning Center.
David Smith is a board member of the BLMA, and he has been involved with the development of many of the exhibits in the museum at Beavertail.
Yeah, and he's done a fantastic job. I
yeah.
hadn't been to the museum in a while until fairly recently, and it's really, really good what he's done there. And our third guest is Varoujan Karentz, who's a retired corporate executive, experienced offshore sailor, and author of 3 Rhode Island history books and numerous articles. He's also on the board of the Beavertail Lighthouse Museum Association. His books include Beavertail Light Station and The Lifesavers, Rhode Island's Forgotten Service. So let's listen to my conversation with Nancy, David, and Varoujan now. I'm speaking this afternoon with my friends Nancy Beye, Varoujan Karentz, and David Smith from Beavertail Lighthouse in Rhode Island, which is absolutely one of my favorite lighthouses. And if people ask me what lighthouses to visit in Rhode Island, it's the one I always put number 1. It's the best one to visit in the state of Rhode Island. So before we get more into the lighthouse, let me just ask each of you, and you can fight over who goes first, but I'm just curious how each of you ended up getting involved with Beavertail Lighthouse. Who wants to go first?
Well, in my situation, it was very easy, only because I living close by, in walking distance to the lighthouse, and it was easy to get up and walk down the road, and then down the Beavertail Road, right smack into the state park. And then, of course, from the state park, the lighthouse was at the end of it. And it was very, very popular for driving by automobile and even by hiking. So my association of it started on that basis, taking a walk down to the light on the basis of the fact that it was there, and it was easy for me to get down there. So I did a lot of walking back in the 1980s.
Sure. And I'll just mention, I don't want to dwell on this because age is just, it's just a number. But tell me how old you are, Varoujan, or how young you are.
My age?
Yeah.
If you stick around for another
week or so, right?
2 weeks,
2
it's
weeks.
going to be 97 years old.
Yeah. Well,
So-
happy early birthday. Again,
Thank
you're a very young 97. So, again, it's just a number. It's more how you feel and what's in your heart and everything.
Right.
So,
He's doing amazing.
of course, I just
Yeah.
visited you a few weeks ago, and
That's right.
it's good to see you
Yeah.
doing so well.
Yeah, it is. So do you want me to go next? I remember the first time I went into the lighthouse, like it was yesterday, and but because it was only 7 years ago. I had lived here over 25 years and never had been in the lighthouse. I'm ashamed to say, but what happened was, for a long time, up until a few years ago, you could drive around the lighthouse. And I'm sure you remember that. The road that surrounds the lighthouse was open, and because of erosion, the state closed it down a couple of seasons ago. And so anyway, what would happen, and for a lot of us, we just drive around and never come in. And so now it's interesting because people have to park in a parking lot and walk down to the lighthouse, so they tend to come in. But for me, that first day I drove a bunch of senior citizens from Jamestown in our bus out there to visit the lighthouse, and I was hooked from that day on. And I think somebody mentioned to me, we're always looking for volunteers, and that was it for me. I've been there ever since. So yeah.
And you became the president. How long ago was that?
Yes, just last July.
Mhm.
So I'm still in my first year,
And,
still a newbie.
Former President Linda Warner has been on this podcast too.
Yeah, she's actually upstairs right now. Anyway,
I'll say hi for me.
I will, absolutely.
And let me just get something straight. Both Varoujan and David, I know you've both done a lot of research into the history of the place, but neither of you has an official title as historian, right? But
There's a couple of old guys.
okay, yeah. David, I want you to have a chance. How did you get involved with Beavertail Lighthouse?
Well, a friend of mine was volunteering as a docent at the lighthouse. This was back around 2013, I think. And she said there's a guy at the lighthouse who's writing a book about the life-saving service. This guy.
Yep.
And so I said, well, my great-grandfather was in the life-saving service. I have pictures of him. So I took the pictures to the lighthouse and met Varoujan. He put my great-grandfather in his book, and I've been hanging around there ever since. That's how that
I can't get rid of you now.
Yeah, that's
No,
right.
we don't want to. We wouldn't know how to turn on a computer if it wasn't for David.
Let's just talk a little bit about the history of Beavertail Lighthouse and fight amongst yourselves, but I think either Varoujan or David or Nancy, if you want to take the questions. But first, well, actually, this first one is for you, Varoujan. It's usually said the first lighthouse of Beavertail was built in 1749, which makes it the third oldest light station in America. Of course, it wasn't a country yet when the first lighthouse was built. But Varoujan, in your book on Beavertail Lighthouse, your excellent book about the history of the lighthouse, you made a case that there might have been an earlier light at Beavertail. Can you tell me about that?
Depending on how you read the decisions that were made and how they were used, you can understand the fact there may be a possibility that the first light that was used was from Beavertail. And it's not the third lighthouse that came up in the US, but that might be the first one. By the fact that light was always lit back something like 6 years before
Or Boston Light?
the other lights.
Yeah. It's interesting. I guess it's largely like semantics, it depends on your definitions. Was it really a lighthouse exactly, the original light? That might be, but I'm not arguing with you. So it's interesting. That's why, in the lighthouse world, I try not to make absolute statements, the tallest or the oldest or whatever, because somebody will prove you wrong, no matter what it is. But going to 1749, when the colonial government built what was definitely a major lighthouse, why was a lighthouse needed there at that time?
Well, Newport traffic with such things as slavery, exchange of alcohol by the business people in Newport was a driving factor.
Jeremy, you find too that when you go back to the colonial times, Newport was extremely active, one of the most active trading centers on the East in America.
Yep.
And one of the richest cities in America. And so all the maritime traffic coming up the bay, it's a very dangerous place, as you know from sailing. It's a very dangerous place to get into and get out of. So Beavertail, obviously the place for the light.
The merchants in Newport, these ships are coming from, they would come, all of those miles from Europe with all these, the cargoes full.
The slaves
And whatnot, and they crash.
Yeah.
And they would crash. So that's why, and I'm sure Linda Warner mentioned this because this is her thing. And prior to the light being built, they would evidently compensate the Native Americans that lived on this island to start to have pitch fires going in the evening to warn the ships that there was danger ahead. Yeah.
And by the way, just to do with what you were both talking about, early in its history, I think the light was referred to as Newport Light often, right?
Yeah.
Because it marked the approach to Newport. What happened to Beavertail in the American Revolution?
The British took over the light. There's no question about that. And we have a little evidence that when they were run off when the French came in and French Navy came in, and the British Navy was forced out. That some of that lighting material went with them, including lenses, reflectors, and what have you. So and for a couple of years, 2 years or so, it really didn't have any decent reflector or decent light.
It was fighting at a few lighthouses in the Revolution, including Boston Light, of course, where the British blew up the first lighthouse there. Are there any particular personalities among keepers or anybody involved with the lighthouse that kind of stands out for you?
Well,
Wait.
what's his name?
Carrillo?
Carrillo, we always talk about this one family, and they still have relatives here on the island, and I believe it's the,
Dominic Torello?
yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, his son,
His son, one of them lives in North Kingston.
yeah, they still come and visit and
Yeah.
tell stories about how when they were children, living there, and they would have a snowstorm, and they would pack the foghorns with the snow, so that when they blew, they'd have like,
It blows snow.
yeah.
If you look on our website, beavertaillight.org, we'll plug and click the button for the archives. In there, you will find the transcription of an interview that Varoujan did with Dominic Torello, who was the keeper. He was an old man at that time.
They were there in the 50s, right?
Yeah. But it's a very interesting read, and Varoujan's interview with Dominic Torello.
I'll look that up because I haven't seen that. Thank you for telling
On
me.
the archives.
Yeah, I've read that they were there in the hurricane of 1954, and I guess
Yeah.
things were pretty touch and go there for a while.
I remember the hurricane in 1954.
Yeah. According to, I think there's a newspaper article about it, something happened that actually blocked exit from their house. I think part of the roof actually collapsed, and they were kind of trapped in there, but they managed to get out through a window and ran to the other house, is the way it was described, because the other house was still intact and they thought that would be a safer place to be. So they all managed to get out of there. And I think the Trillos had quite a few kids, if I remember right. I think it was something like 11.
My sister and I and my mother and father went through the 1938 hurricane. I still to this day don't know why my father was home. The winds were so strong that we lived on a bluff that we had to evacuate and move over on another bluff high enough to have safety than what we did.
Yeah.
And my father took my sister and I and my mother up on a bluff, and my sister and I were put down on the ground, holding the legs of a steel bench.
Yeah.
He, with my mother, wrapped themselves around a tree, both together, hugging it for about 2.5 hours.
Wow. So you must remember that pretty well still,
Oh,
right?
I'll tell you, I'll never forget it. I never forget it.
Just to be clear, we were talking about the hurricane of 54, but you're talking about the very famous hurricane of 1938, which is the worst hurricane in recorded New England history and really hit the South Coast very hard. September 21st, 1938. And of course, nobody knew it was coming. There was no warning, and that's why it did so much damage and killed so many people. Nobody knew anything about it. The forecasters actually thought it was going out to sea. So what happens at Beavertail during the hurricane of 38?
I don't know if it's up in the archives site yet, but it will be shortly. It's a home movie that was taken at Beavertail by a local person the day after the 1938 hurricane.
Wow.
I'll let you know when we get that posted.
Yeah.
2 buildings, 2 storage buildings, correct? 1 storage building?
Yeah, I don't know that much of the detail, just from the.
Just from the
Yeah.
pictures, so
Yeah.
there were some storage buildings that were destroyed, and then the most disastrous was the lighthouse keeper at the time lost his daughter on the
Yeah.
school bus coming home
Oh,
that
yeah.
afternoon.
Yeah. Chellis, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And
Yeah.
the 38 hurricane that uncovered the foundation of the original lighthouse.
Which has actually been preserved nicely. So you
That's
don't,
right.
don't lose
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Yeah. I knew the Chellis thing. I believe the school bus was stuck and the driver tried to get them to safety, and the waves were too much. And I think the driver and the son of Keeper Chellis were the only survivors in that, but the daughter was lost. And another son of Keeper Chellis, I think he's still a docent for you. Is that correct?
I saw him on Monday.
He is.
Taking his walk.
Yeah, he is, and he's like he's a local celebrity there because he doesn't share that story, but if we're around him and we see him talking to visitors, we always mention that, that story, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's
Yeah.
younger, I think, right? Does he remember the hurricane?
Yeah, he wasn't born until a couple of years later.
Okay.
Yeah, he wasn't born then, but he definitely remembers living at the lighthouse. Definitely, yeah.
So one of my favorite keeper stories is during the 60s, a fellow named George Light.
Oh,
George Light?
Yeah.
Light, Light,
Yeah.
and his favorite thing was to answer the phone and say Beavertail Lighthouse, Light speaking.
I didn't realize there was a keeper named Light. That's perfect. So, Varoujan, can you maybe say a little bit about what was going on near Beavertail and around Narragansett Bay during World War II?
Well, we know that the port of Newport was full of ships, Navy putting together a convoy there and leaving Beavertail area. There was a lot of activity in that. I was surprised to find out that they had the light lit all during the World War II.
Also, did you mention the submarine nets? I always find that interesting. Not being a historian, things like that interest me. But they actually had nets, metal mesh nets from Jamestown to Newport across the bay to prevent the
And
subs
from
coming.
Saunderstown to Jamestown.
Did they have them on that side too?
Right.
Right, and then there's still parts, you can still see in some parts of Jamestown, you can still see there's some links left over.
So let's jump ahead to the present day. All right, there's
Okay.
plenty of history we could talk about, but I'll refer people to Varoujan's book on Beavertail Lighthouse, which is the source for anybody who wants to know about the history of the place, as well as the museum. Of course, they need to come to the museum too. But I just visited a couple of weeks ago, and Varoujan, you were talking about the museum, and I hadn't been there in a while, and I got to see some new stuff in the museum that I hadn't seen before. There's a lot of kind of modern, newfangled digital type exhibits that I think are really amazing. Could any of you maybe say a little bit about what people will find when they visit that museum?
They'll find the most comprehensive small museum, cover a certain subject, one subject in New England, maybe in the whole Northeast. But anyway, we have a Fresnel lens, a fourth order Fresnel lens. We have exhibits explaining the history and how a Fresnel lens works.
Yeah.
Talk about your technology.
Technology, we have a 55-inch touchscreen with 30 or 40 videos and slideshows on it. We give access to the shipwreck database that was developed by Varoujan and Jim Jenny.
Mhm.
That gives you the story on over 3,000 shipwrecks and around Narragansett Bay, 3,400, I think.
3,320.
Okay,
Oh,
to be
wow.
exact. Give or take one or two, maybe.
Our author that really put this together spent 10 years collecting information. Hard to believe, but it did.
And they're fun to look up. We always instruct the visitors to look up their birthday to see what shipwrecks happened. But one thing happened last year when I was there, and it was a gentleman came in and he was so excited to see that shipwreck database that he started to do a little genealogy, ancestry kind of like fact finding, because he'd always heard his grandfather talk about this certain ship and he thought it had wrecked. And he actually, we figured it out and he found it. And he was brought to tears, actually. He was so excited to get that. So it's a little thing, but it meant a lot. It means a lot.
I was working as a docent one Sunday afternoon and I saw people looking at the shipwreck database and I kind of eavesdropped a little bit and I heard the guy, it was one of the big ships, one of the oil tankers that ran aground down at the Dumplings. And he was telling his wife, I was on the bridge of that ship when that happened.
And David has added some monitors that you can actually take little quizzes on lighthouse to test your lighthouse knowledge,
Yeah,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
people are,
and we have the timeline.
right.
based on Varoujan's book.
Mm-hmm,
So that's all
mm-hmm.
available in
So
digital format.
it's, yeah,
So David, you've had a lot to do with developing some of the recent exhibits, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
pretty much all of them. He's being modest.
Yeah. Well, it's really great, and you're right, David. I think when you say it's there's some other really good museums at lighthouses. Navesink, Twin Lights in New Jersey is one I think is really good. I could probably name a few more, but Beavertail is right up there. Absolutely is one of the
Thank
best
you.
museums at a lighthouse that I've seen anywhere, and it keeps getting better. So
Hope so.
yeah, you're all
Yeah,
doing.
they're constantly working at it, Jeremy, and constantly walking through the museum, see what they can do better or add to it, or
Mm-hmm.
absolutely all the time.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned the fourth order Fresnel lens, David. Is that a lens? What is the history of that lens? Was it ever used in Beavertail Lighthouse?
As far as I've been told, it was in the tower at Beavertail. And I have been telling that to people and had people come up to me afterwards and say, no, that's not true.
Okay. It's
So
hard
I don't
it's hard to know for
I don't
sure
know.
sometimes. The records are not too great for a lot of those
Right,
lenses.
right.
I have a question for you, Jeremy, because you visited so many, you know so much about this. I had a visitor come in one time and he seemed very knowledgeable about the different Fresnel lens. And he said that he and another group, once a year, they go out, and I don't remember, I'm sorry to say, I don't remember the name of the lighthouse, but it's in Connecticut. It's on a little island that people aren't able to go out to because of nesting birds, endangered birds and that type of thing. But anyway, he told me that a lot of times when they went to replace lens in lighthouses, especially in a remote place like that, they
Yeah.
didn't bother carrying them down. They would just open the window and throw them out on the rocks. And he was told that story. And then one year, he and his daughter were on this little island this one time helping and to clean it up. And they actually found big chunks of what they feel were the lens. Had you heard stories like that before?
I have. I think the lighthouse, the island you're talking about in Connecticut is Faulkner's Island off Guilford, Connecticut.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I'm just updating my book on Connecticut lighthouses, and I'm just working on the chapter on Faulkner's Island like the last
Oh,
couple
isn't
of
that
days.
funny?
So, yeah,
That's funny.
little
So
coincidence there. But
yeah.
yeah, I have heard. I mean, in the days when lighthouses were being automated, and usually as part of that, sometimes the Fresnel lenses were removed even earlier than that. But a lot of times when they're automating them, the Fresnel lenses were replaced by more modern kinds of lights. Sometimes the rotating arrow beacons type lights, like you had a Beavertail for a long time, or more modern plastic type lights. And in the days before people realized the historic value and the monetary value of those lenses, a lot of them were just tossed out from the top into the ocean or on the ground or whatever. That was then, this is now.
I like to remind visitors how lucky we are to have that one because of
Yeah.
things like that. And it's funny, we take that light for granted. We don't really, but if it should go out, as it does on a rare occasion, the police department here will actually get calls from people that live on both sides of the bay, like in Newport and Saunderstown, saying what's going on at Beavertail.
I know what that's like. I live here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and people email me when the local lights are out. They get concerned about it. I think it's more the local residents who are so used to seeing the lights than it is mariners these days.
Oh,
The people in
absolutely.
boats and ships, they have modern electronics. But I think they still like having the lighthouses there as kind of a backup.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
Jeremy, I want to emphasize a couple of items on Beavertail.
Yep.
Number one is that we're 100% volunteers.
All
There is not a
volunteers, yeah.
single person getting paid on that on the property. And number two is the fact that we don't have any admission. It's free.
Right.
It's hard to believe, but people walk in and they voluntarily. We have a volunteer
Like
pot,
donation
Box,
boxes.
yeah.
Yeah.
but it's not pushed. It's not acted up or what have you. But it's free. It's open, and the people that run it, same thing. All volunteers. Every
Yeah.
single one of them. So
Yeah, that's great on both counts. That's really great because life is not all about money. Some people might think it is, but
But we do have a gift shop.
right, yeah, you have an
What-
excellent gift
what
shop, actually.
Respectable museum wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
No, you have a really excellent gift shop, and people can't see it, but I'm wearing a Beavertail Lighthouse baseball cap right now, as you are, David. So
In my
we
summer
we
hat.
found we dug this out of a box when I was there a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah.
right. We have everything stored away until
30
in
days.
30 days.
We open
David,
in 30 days.
David
Yeah,
just
yeah.
updated our website,
Mhm.
and he has a countdown clock on it to how many days before we open. That's how he knows.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
30
exactly.
days, 30
Yeah.
days and counting.
It's like 30 days until Christmas. Yeah.
Exactly.
30 shopping days until.
Yeah,
That counts the weekends too, right? Are you just, yeah,
yeah,
okay.
So along with the museum, is the lighthouse open for climbing?
yes.
Yeah.
Our first tower climb will be on Memorial Day. The afternoon, we, 1:30, 1:30 to 4.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's about every other Saturday throughout the summer until Labor Day.
Yeah.
And the actual dates and times are all on the website, right on the
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
homepage.
And
So it's not
I
open
think,
all the time, but it is open a
right.
number of days during the summer. Yeah.
It's a matter of getting enough people to make
Right.
it safe so that we have people up top and people to be there.
right,
Sure.
exactly. It's very popular too.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And,
Oh yeah. I'm sure when it's not open, I'm sure you get people constantly saying, "Can I climb the tower? Is it open?" Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
or I'm only here this weekend and I'm not gonna be here
Right.
next weekend.
I've heard all this. If you
I'm sure
open
you-
it, they will come.
Right. Oh,
People do enjoy
exactly.
climbing them.
But, again, I think we're fortunate because, when we visited other lighthouses in the area where you can access the tower. So we feel really fortunate that we're able to open that up to the public.
That's true. The majority are not open at all for climbing, so it's really, really good that you do that. So let me ask you, it was announced in 2021 that the light station will be transferred to a new owner under the National Historic Lighthouse Preservation Act. I haven't heard anything lately, so where does that process stand at this point?
The property was transferred last year.
Mhm.
It was.
Yeah, it's owned actually by the state of Rhode Island, the Department of Environmental Management.
Right.
Because
Okay.
we are in a state park.
Okay.
The state owns the buildings and so on and so forth. Beavertail Lighthouse Museum Association manages the museum and has pretty much control over what goes on inside.
Yeah.
building.
Yeah.
Right.
When you say that, of course I'm remembering now. It's like, I'm old and I forget things, but it slipped my mind that the transfer actually took place. So like you said, it
No,
was
that's okay, yeah.
yeah.
And I think, and then I don't know how many exactly, I heard different numbers of people that when it did go up there were a lot of people that had other ideas about what they could do out there. I just remember one person wanted to close it as a museum, of course, and wanted to make it into a cooking school.
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't remember any of the other ideas, but we were fortunate. We thought we had a good shot, and that's why we partnered with the state, and also the town is on the
Town.
agreement too. And we thought we'd have a good shot at it to keep it the way it is and preserve
Yeah.
it and open it up to the public.
Yeah. BLMA, the Beavertail Lighthouse Museum Association, has been doing a great job for quite a few years now. So again, we're speaking in mid-April, and I'm not actually sure when this episode is going to be posted, but you open for the season in mid-May, is that right?
The 17th.
May 17th. Okay.
Yeah, we open for the weekends. And then towards the end of June, we'll open 7 days a week all summer.
Okay. Until when?
Labor Day.
Labor Day, and then to a weekend only schedule.
Weekends only till Columbus Day.
Hmm. Okay, great.
Then we'll open 2 weekends in December for Christmas shopping.
Excellent, excellent.
I think more than that, it's just for us to get our fix of the lighthouse, because by that time we've missed it,
Yeah. Well, while we're still on the topic of visiting there, I'm gonna assume that you have the U.S. Lighthouse Society passport stamp.
You do.
We do.
We just
Yeah.
got a new one.
Yes, we do.
The old one was wearing out, so we got a new one.
Uh-huh. I'm sure you get a lot of people requesting that. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
passport stamp collectors are pretty fanatical about it, so you
Yes.
gotta have that. Yeah.
That's great though,
Yeah. Oh, it's a good thing. It gets people excited about visiting lighthouses.
We have a docent that is on her, I think, 6th passport. So
Wow.
yeah, 6 passports. I know, that's incredible. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
We
well, that's
we
impressive.
do have it.
Great. So let me ask you something. I was looking at the website and I was wondering if you could explain what is the Beavertail sound bath?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, David, explain that.
I'm not sure how you explain
So
that.
it's,
You gotta wear your shorts and come up and join the crowd.
so it's
Okay.
it's not yoga, but you do bring a yoga mat and you lay on the ground and you have these people trained in relaxation techniques. And they bring their bowls,
Yeah,
and you
Oh,
know,
like
they
like
roll
Tibet, sometimes they call them Tibetan sound bowls or something.
exactly,
Yeah.
that's exactly what it is, and people just lay there and relax under the stars.
and they try to do it on a full moon.
That's right, they do it,
So it's
yeah.
really beautiful.
That sounds
Yeah.
great. I love it. Lighthouse is a perfect place to do something like that.
They had
Is it
hundreds of
such a
people.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
such a positive energy at lighthouses?
One of our docents, she organizes that and takes part in that as well,
Yeah.
so.
Mm-hmm. So this is probably a question for you, David, because you mentioned it earlier, but what is the Beavertail Archives project?
We are sorting through boxes and file cabinets, photograph albums, notebooks, whatever, and trying to get it organized and get it in an online repository.
Mhm.
I mean, we also have all the financial records for the BLMA going back to day one.
Yeah.
Those probably won't be made available to the public, but we want to gather these things and put together exhibits. For example, Dominic Torillo, one of the keepers, I'm putting together all the things that we know about him, all the paperwork, all the articles and stuff. And
Mhm.
that'll be an exhibit in the archives. There's one on Ed Donahue, who was another keeper, a big family.
They're on the
And-
Hurricane of 38, Donahue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so it's bringing things like that. We use Varoujan, has done quite a bit on World War II at Beavertail, so, you know, that's another exhibit that people can browse through
Yeah.
online. But we just want to make sure we get all this stuff cataloged and organized, so it doesn't get forgotten.
Yeah, that's important, but also these days digitizing it and storing it that way and making it accessible to people is super important.
Yeah.
And David, I think you and I have corresponded about the U.S. Lighthouse Society
Yeah.
online research catalog, and there is certainly there's a lot to do with Beavertail on there, but it's going to be updated more because I've been uploading my personal archives of 40 years to that
Oh, wow.
archive. So more and more of that will show up on the public
Yeah.
research catalog. But we should continue the conversation of ways of helping each other with this, make
Oh,
sure
yeah.
we get all the
Absolutely.
information that's available. Yeah.
By the way, the average visitors that we have annually exceeds 33,000 each year.
Mm-hmm. 33,000. Yeah. It's got to be by far and away the most visited lighthouse in Rhode Island. I mean, there aren't that many you can drive to really in Rhode Island.
Right, I think the ease of being able to get into it, and it makes it that much more visited.
Yeah. The two on Block Island are great, but you got to take the ferry out there. And otherwise they're
Yeah.
mostly out in the bay. They're on the water. Yeah.
Right, and I don't know, like the North Light, the small lighthouse on Block Island, I don't believe it's open to the public. Is it?
I
Or,
think,
oh, is it? I've
Yeah.
never been.
It is sometimes, yeah.
Okay,
I think
when,
they had little events there or something.
oh, okay,
Little open-
and that we know the large one is haunted, but that's for another topic, right? No, he knows, he knows, you know.
Well,
right?
there's so many of them have stories. And well,
Right.
since we're on the subject, let me ask you, is Beavertail Lighthouse and/or keepers' houses haunted?
Not that we know of, a group came in a few years ago and spent the night and set up their equipment and thought that they got some echoes of activity inside the tower where the granite had remembered
Yeah.
voices. And so that was fun to talk about for a while.
Regular listeners have heard me say before, I'm an open-minded skeptic. So I
like
don't believe
that.
everything I hear, but I think there's something to a lot of these stories. So it's always
Right,
an interesting subject. Yeah.
it's like when you said a cat came out to greet you at one of your visits, several years ago, Panem Rocks in East Providence.
They had a
They
famous
have a
cat.
cat store, yeah, so, but we don't have a cat, so.
Well, Judy Ann Point from Palm Rocks is a frequent co-host of the podcast, and I think she's going to be.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's a tremendous restoration at that lighthouse. So I have two
exactly.
final questions for all three of you. You're not all required to answer, but this is directed at all three of you. So these final two questions are for bonus points, okay?
I was gonna say, how much are they worth? Yeah, okay, I'm ready. First one.
All right. So the next to last bonus point question is, why is it important to preserve Beavertail Lighthouse and its history?
Because it's one of the most beautiful spots on earth.
That's a good
It's
reason.
simple to get to, and you get there. Paper in Connecticut has written an article. This I'm going back now, maybe 10 years. It went like something that said that if you want to spend a wonderful day, drive to Beavertail Lighthouse, and you'll find out that it's just as good as any location in Maine. So,
Mhm.
I'm gonna, yeah, I'll take.
That's saying a lot.
I think in order for us to appreciate what we have now, we need to understand how we got here and the history. We need to know about the people and that got us to where we are now, you know, whether it be inventing or building or that type of thing. And I think that's why it's important to keep it as it is.
If you combine all three of your answers, that pretty much says it. But most beautiful place on earth, that sums it up pretty well. So the final question for bonus points is, and again, for all three of you, what do you love most about your association with Beavertail Lighthouse?
The people that I've met, either
Okay.
working with or that come in on a Sunday afternoon to visit.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I think it's an enriching experience. I tell people, I think I learn more from the visitors than they do from me, for sure. And all the different stories and their backgrounds, for sure. So
Anything you want to add, Varoujan, before we close up shop?
got it all.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
We've said
Thank
it
you.
all. Well, there's always more to say about Beavertail Lighthouse. And again, you know, I can't recommend to people enough to visit there if they're lighthouse fans or fans of just beautiful places to visit with nice exhibits to see too. It's just such a great place to go. Varoujan Karentz, David Smith, and Nancy Beye, thank you so much. This
Oh,
is
thank
great.
you.
It was a
Thank you.
pleasure, Nancy. Varoujan, I've met you a number of times over the years. I had dinner at your house one time some years ago. I think it was before I spoke for the association that evening. So we go back a ways. But David and Nancy, it's been nice getting to know you
Thank you.
more recently.
It's nice getting to know you because Varoujan speaks very highly of you, even when he calls you by your nickname.
Well, you said before that he called me Mr. Lighthouse. That's
Yes.
really nice. I appreciate that. But some of our listeners might know that there was a man by the name of Ken Black, the late Ken Black, who founded the Maine Lighthouse Museum, was a former Coast Guard officer. He was known as Mr. Lighthouse. So I would not take that title because he had it. You can call him, and there's somebody else who's using the Lighthouse guy. So sometimes I call myself the Lighthouse dude. So you can call me that if you want.
There you go. There you go. Well, I think it's great what you're doing too, and educating people about lighthouses and keeping them important and relevant. I think that's great.
Well, same for all of you. So again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
For more on Beavertail Lighthouse and Museum, check out beavertaillight.org. You'll find the schedule for the museum and for the lighthouse climbing days during the summer. There are also online exhibits you can browse. One of the exhibits is about Dominic Torillo, who was a keeper at Beavertail in the 1950s. One of the things you can read is a transcript of an interview Varoujan Karentz did with Dominic back in 2009.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. It's really interesting. It's so great he recorded that. I've known Varoujan for years. I've spoken down there for the group a couple of times in Jamestown. And one of those times, Varoujan and his wife had me over for dinner at their home, which was really nice, very hospitable and friendly people. I think you'll agree with me that Varoujan Karentz is a national treasure.
I love Varoujan Karentz and his beautiful wife, Rose. Of course, they were both there at the Ida Lewis dedication a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I went down with my husband and some members of the Palm Rocks board, and we went and had a private tour of the Beavertail Lighthouse by their board. Then we went out to dinner together. The Beavertail board, all the personnel down there, they are the most wonderful, wonderful, friendly people. And I'm
Yeah.
so glad we have a close relationship with them.
Yeah.
And the museum is amazing.
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely one of the best lighthouses to visit in New England. And, I first went there in the late 80s and been there countless times. And it's always a treat to go there. And speaking of the wonderful people there, I also want to give a shout out to Linda Warner, former president of the BLMA, who was on this podcast a couple of years ago. Linda and her husband, George, had a lot to do with making the organization what it is today. So before we sign off, do you have any quotes about summer, Judy Ann?
Of course I do. The author Sam Keene once wrote, and I quote, "Deep summer is when laziness finds respectability," end quote.
Yeah, I'll second that. When it's 90 and humid like it is today, being lazy is, I think, a responsible course of action. So I'll add one more thought to that. The poet Wallace Stevens once wrote, quote, "The summer night is like a perfection of thought," unquote. So think about that for a while. So any other news you'd like to pass along before we close up shop?
Well, yes, you know me. I actually did hear from David Zapatka from Plum Beach Lighthouse in Rhode Island, and this is for all the lens buffs out there, okay? Just some update. The Poplar Point Lighthouse, which is a privately owned lighthouse in Wickford, Rhode Island, it's owned by Russell Shippey. It was relit, of course, on Christmas night, first time in 142 years. Well, Dave heard from Nick Korstad, who said that there was a 1905 AGA Swedish 500 millimeter Fresnel lens up for sale. So Russell bought it, and that's what is now in the Poplar Point Lighthouse lantern. And one other thing Dave mentioned at Plum Beach Lighthouse, they installed a new VLB 25 rotating LED beacon. It was funded by a grant. They're going to be calling it the Bob and Pat Fuller Memorial Beacon because they were longtime residents of Plum Beach neighborhood, and they bequeathed funds to disperse, to local nonprofits. So they love the lighthouse, and the family is thankful their memory will be seen by many at night. So I think that's really nice.
That is nice in
Yes.
both those cases. And Dave Zapatka, by the way, as a lot of our listeners know, is officially the director of photography for the U.S. Lighthouse Society, and he's got 2 new books out. As I'm sure you know, he specializes in night photography of lighthouses. In addition to being kind of running that organization for Plum Beach Lighthouse for quite a few years. But we were just about to have a live Zoom event with David talking about his new books and his photography, but that's been postponed. But watch for that. That will be happening probably in the near future. So thank you so much for co-hosting again, Judy Ann, and thank you for everything you do for lighthouses.
Oh, my pleasure.
We will be back with a new episode in 2 weeks featuring a conversation with the grandson of Frank Schubert, a very famous guy. He was the longtime keeper of Coney Island Light, New York. And we'll have a lighthearted light episode next week. Until then, to all our regular listeners and our new ones, thanks so much for listening, and
keep a good light.
I'm gonna let it shine, this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.